Now we're moving on to Gergana. She's presenting the outcome of a survey we were delivering to our members, ICMCI members, the members of our members actually. And the results, here they are. Gergana, thank you for coming. The floor is yours.
It is exciting to convey the views of more than 400 management consultants from all over the world. We will first set the context, why ESG survey and why now. We will then talk about the survey specifics before delving into the research findings. And as you know, the most important measure for success of any survey is what actions follow that. So we would also consider ideas on how to get prepared for the long-term opportunities and challenges that ESG presents. Please feel free to ask questions or make comments on the chat. I look forward to having an open discussion like with the previous session and see what we could do together. We start with the context now. As you know, the ESG Consultancy Survey is part of the Future Management Consultancy Initiative. Since its start, we have been examining the global trends and the drivers of change, seeking to identify what are the capabilities and skills of consultants that will be most valued in the years to come. As you know, we have offered many opportunities to understand deeper and the fast-moving issues around us and thus help us prepare for the future. So when surveying the market landscape, one thing became certain, and this is that the global pandemic has accelerated the adoption of ESG, and the expectations are that it will continue to grow. So therefore, it is increasingly important for management consultants to be well-versed in the field. And this is why we started our journey. The first event was powered by the Future Leaders Forum, when in April this year, we had a special guest, Patrick Goodman, a leading impact finance specialist and a co-founding partner of Impact based in Luxembourg. This is some of the fields which we discussed. We discussed the concept and the key elements of the Sustainable Development Goals. We learned about the changing environment of investing, starting from traditional investing, aiming for financial returns only, going to responsible investing with positive and negative screening, evolving to sustainable investing with an ESG component, and reaching out even far with impact investing, where you're not simply trying to get to a net zero result, but you are actually working to with the intention to create a positive and measurable social environmental impact, alongside, of course, financial returns. We also discussed about the partnership between institutions and private organizations in achieving the goals. And we have discussed the role consultants could take along the way. In July, we had a milestone event. In July, we had a milestone event on professional standards and ethics, which was moderated by Jalal Sakin, CMC, and the ICMCI Professional Standards Committee Chair. We have specifically invited Balázs Mezusi, CMC and owner and managing director of Deveco Consulting in Hungary, to focus on sustainability and green transition. And Balázs directed our attention to the question which we had discussed in the previous session. Who is entitled to call something green? Who to trust in this matter? And explained that this is where a certain level of standardization is necessary, not only with ISO standards, but what we understood from the previous session, with methodologies, metrics, processes to help implementers in this respect, and also to make the results and projects valid and comparable. We then distinguished the market trends between large companies and SMEs, large companies who are building quickly their capacity, and SMEs who needs to hold their hand and to explain the basics, but also to help them go into that direction. And I would like to mention one more aspect, which was very important from this session. We discussed the sustainability-related ethical problems. Greenwashing, is it possible to go green without being actually green? Privatizing profits while socializing costs, usually a dilemma for public projects, public sector, and practice what you preach, something which we as consultants also need to work on. And then in September, we moved from compliance to real business world examples of creating value with ESG adoption. Kim Karme, CMC and CEO at Karme Consulting in Finland, moderated a webinar with a diverse group of market players, all front runners in ESG implementation. The story of Valio, the largest food company in Finland and a major player in the international dairy ingredients market, gave us a perspective on sustainability through impacting the entire value chain. In the financial services sector, we understood how ESG integration changes the strategy, policies, processes, really the entire organization. Finally, our colleague CMC presented the story of how at Nitor, a digital engineering company, they are incorporating ESG practices into the DNA of their organization over time. All presenters came to the conclusion that ESG matters have become a business imperative. We managed to paint a beautiful and rich picture about ESG. However, something important was missing, and this is the voice of consultants. To understand what is the level of readiness from consultants, but also what ICMCI, what the institutes could do in order to help prepare fully for the future, and also to boost the profession and the role of consultants. Recognizing the survey fatigue phenomena, which I would hope you would agree with me, we were cautious of asking many questions. And we have selected a few what we believe would be critical questions. And I would like to thank Balázs Mezusi for his valuable input in formulating the questions. We had questions which were required, mandatory, but then we allowed for optional questions where we could, which would allow us to have a much deeper analysis of our findings. And then we leveraged, the survey was online, the survey was anonymous, and we leveraged on the ICMCI strong international network, collaborated with the national institutes for distributing the survey among the individual members, as well as among the wider consulting community. And I would like to thank the institutes with whom we have been in most close contact. These are Austria, Canada, the Caribbean, China, Germany, Italy, Ireland, Korea, Japan, and many other institutes, of course, who have promoted the survey, and many individual consultants who have also promoted the survey. Here is more information on the respondents' profile. As I said, there were 418 people who have responded. Here is the profile of respondents by regions. And then if you click once more, we will see the respondents' profile by client base. 57% service SME clients, 21% large corporates, and 90% public sector bodies. We also have a representation of micro enterprises of 3%, which I think, having in mind that SMEs all over the world at 90% actually gives a very good presentation of the results. So if we click next, we will start looking at the first question, which is: to what extent are you familiar with sustainability and green transition policy goals and processes? This is a rating scale question on a scale from 1 to 5, starting from not familiar and leading up to completely familiar. If you click we would see the overall 3.6 result, which shows a very positive picture, as less than 5% of the participants admit that they are not acquainted with their ESG concept and processes. If we click, then we will see the distribution or the information by different regions. The regions are presented in an alphabetical order, where you will see that more than half of the respondents, 58%, share that they are familiar with the ideas, and 1/5 or 9% being fully competent. And in terms of global positioning, Europe leads the way with 66% of respondents who are confident about their knowledge in ESG, followed by Asia Pacific, and Africa and the Americas with 51%. Then if we go to the second question was related to the market demand as regards the steps. So to what extent are your clients active in considering green solutions for their businesses? As regards the steps businesses actually take to implement the ESG concepts on a scale from 1 to 5, ranging from not active to extremely active, the average on the next click, we will see the average of 3.1, which signals a moderate market demand for ESG-related services by clients. Okay, then the great majority of clients, or 61%, seems to be at the initial stage of ESG implementation, being slightly to moderately active, and approximately 34% of clients are at the forefront, being very and extremely active. On the next click, we will see the geographical perspective, and an interesting observation here that clients in Asia Pacific region are in the lead by far, with 50% being very active or extremely active. Europe registers 31, following closely by the Americas and Africa with 29 and 26% respectively. The third question on the next slide would show us the results of do consultants intend to further your knowledge on sustainability and green transition policies? To better present the results, I had to combine the not a priority and the last two, high priority and a priority. And if we click, we will see that there is a resounding determination among consultants to boost their knowledge in ESG matters, which is in line with the growing market demand for such services and the worldwide regulatory developments in the area as well. Basically, 86% means that almost every 9 of 10 consultants will be look at that as a priority, will be working, will be self-developing. The large majority of participants report that ESG is an essential element for them. And only less than 1% actually indicate that this is not on their radar at the moment. The look across the globe shows almost equal shares of prioritization of ESG learning in the different regions, with Africa being in the lead with 90%, in the two highest priorities, followed by Asia Pacific 88 and the Americas and Europe 85 and 86 respectively. Our next question was related to the area-specific fields which consultants will feel more relevant to future-proof awareness. And if we click, we will see the 4 areas in terms of share of field from total. And we see that they are relatively comparable, but business models, 29%, the highest relative interest. We can explain the fact that policies and regulations could be easily accessible through internet, and where consultants would look for more developing areas is really business model, how business models change. And if we click again, we will see the number of consultants, or the percentage of consultants which were interested in the specific areas, ranging from, again, 77% from consultants were interested, up to 59% in policies and regulations. And one more click will give us the consultants who need fast track their learning, with almost 1/3 of respondents in all 4 areas. So for Asia Pacifics, it is 43%. I think an impressive results again for that region. So if I have to summarize on the following slide the key findings, I think the first finding is that consultants need to increase their ESG knowledge. While close to 60% of the survey respondents indicated they're well familiar with ESG processes and goals, there is still a considerable room for acquiring timely and relevant information to ensure a deep understanding and ability to increase value and drive long-term socially beneficial results. The second one is that consulting opportunities in the market are abundant. Although ESG has been on the rise, the great majority of clients, close to 61%, is reported to be at the beginning, at the initial stage of ESG strategy and implementation. With ESG becoming ever more salient for investors and the public, consultants can help businesses to take decisive actions and meet expectations. And the third key finding is that becoming truly ESG prepared takes center stage. We saw the intense focus on self-improvement, which is in line with the growing market demand for such services, but also the worldwide regulatory developments in the area. If we talk about the next slide about call to action, here is a bit of changing the principles which we have applied so far. And this is that if we want to drive it as strategic efforts to ESG, we need to move from organizing events, or from events type of thinking, to processes type of thinking, bringing together people, cultures, and ideas. And here are the specific, you need to click twice now. Here are the specific proposals. The first one is preparing, developing, and offering the ESG certification training tailored to consultants. Now, there are many ways to do that. It could be partnering with the university. It could be one of the IMCs taking the lead and then sharing responsibility with others. There are many ways this could be achieved. The second proposed action is to launch an ICMCI network of professionals with ESG focus, who could work together and not only share information among them, but also organize roundtables or other ways of sharing that knowledge with a wider group. The third proposal would be to promote best practices to help consultants in their internal ESG transformation, whether you're an individual consultant or have working within teams. It is very important to do what you preach. The final one is to partner with international institutions and other stakeholders in creating a more sustainable world. The example of how much work UNDP have done, for example, it was a very good example of how we could partner with them in order to position consultants in a strategic level. So this is a thank you now. And maybe if you could stop sharing, we could start with the discussion.